Are you interested in bootstrapping your company? Need advice on how to successfully scale your business with little to no capital? Or maybe you just want to know kind of what the heck bootstrapping is and if it's an option for you? Well, you've come to the right place. Today's episode, I'm going to share what bootstrapping is, why it's an important tool to utilize, and how you can do it yourself. I'm William Glass, host of the Silicon Alley podcast and CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, a fintech company that is on the mission to improve global financial well-being. And for context, I built Ostrich without any coding experience, a tech product, a platform that is now available on iOS and Android, and I have no coding experience, and we did not raise outside capital up to this point. We will in the future, but right now we have not. And so I want to share how we bootstrapped to this point and how you can do it successfully yourself. So be sure to pound that subscribe button so you get to hear more great content like this on how to bootstrap, successfully build businesses, and all the things that you need in your toolkit as an entrepreneur.
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate.
So first, what exactly does bootstrapping mean? So bootstrapping in the traditional sense is when you start a company from the ground up using only your own money, little to no resources essentially, and any sales that you generate from the business. Right? This means that you're not taking on credit card debt and not able to pay it off right away. It means that you're not taking friends and family money. You're not raising money from investors. You're using the resources at your disposal. Now that's just the traditional definition. Seth Godin, who's a best-selling author and a serial entrepreneur who writes a lot in this space, talks about how bootstrapping to him is more of a mentality, right? And it's this mentality of innovation. It's using limited resources to go attack an industry and innovate in a way where other companies and the people that are already in that industry are just thinking in the status quo. And what you're doing is you're building beautiful products, things that fill consumer demand, unmet consumer demand, or demand that is hidden, meaning people don't know that they want it yet. So think of like the iPhone with the first smartphone that had a touch screen, really, right? That was unmet demand and a little bit of hidden demand that Apple tapped into when they went away from computers and iPods and into the phone space. The other key piece when it comes to this bootstrapping mentality is that it's a bit of an underdog mentality, right? You're fighting against the big guys. There's this mission, there's this vision behind it. And that's what bootstrapping is. It's not just using limited to no resources, but it's this mentality of we're going to go change the world and we're the underdogs, we're scrappy, and we're going to make it happen. So to recap, bootstrapping is both a strategy and a mindset, right? It's that ability to go build a business without any capital or very little capital and reinvesting the money that's coming in from the business to continue to grow and scale the business, as well as that sort of underdog, scrappy mentality where you go find innovative and creative solutions. So that is what it is. And from an Ostrich perspective and why it's so important to us is that we built our application with almost no cash, right? We had the opportunity to take on money from an investor, but we didn't feel comfortable early on. And it forced us to get really scrappy about how we built it. It's definitely taken us a little bit longer and longer than if we would have just had money, but the solution that we've built is better. It's more targeted on users' problems and the needs. And I attribute that to the bootstrapping approach that we've taken, both from a strategy perspective as well as from that mindset, right? We are on this mission to change the finance industry forever. And so that's what bootstrapping is, why it's important as a quick recap. All right, so how do you actually bootstrap your business? Maybe you've already got a really great idea, or maybe you have a ton of ideas and you're not sure where to start. Well, I'll tell you this, it's not with the solution, it's with the problem. You first need to go talk to your customers, potential customers, and understand if it is indeed a problem and the solution that you think is great will actually solve their problem, right? It's very, very easy to start with the solution in mind rather than the problem. But when you start with the problem, especially as a bootstrapping business, you set yourself up for success because you limit the risk of building something that nobody wants. When you go talk to people and you understand what their problems and challenges are, then you can really hone in on a solution that will solve that. The solution will almost present itself after you've conducted surveys, focus groups, and spent time really researching your target customers. And if you're not sure how to do that or where you start, or you feel like that sounds like a lot of time and energy, it's really not if you do it the right way. You need to, one, you're probably not going to build a solution for something that you don't care about, right? So that's the first thing, is find a problem that resonates with you, something that you would want to spend time on, or an area, right? And maybe you don't know exactly what the problem is, but you got a general idea. So, for us, it was personal finance and the fact that things were kind of broken with financial literacy. And so that's where we started, was, okay, we know we want to do something in this space. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but this is a problem that we felt and experienced in our own lives, and pretty certain other people have the same problem too. So we went out and we talked to other people. We went through subreddits, Facebook groups. We attended some conferences and things like that, and we spent time understanding who was already in the space and what were the problems that they faced. We did a focus group, which was really, really valuable, and we got a group of about 8 or 9 people together that were in our target demographic, and we bribed them with free pizza and drinks, and we spent less than $100, I think, on that that little evening, and it was a ton of fun. We just spent an hour and a half really diving deep into kind of the problems, challenges, experiences that other people have when it came to personal finance, and then we kind of hung out afterwards. But that allowed us to really dive deep and kind of hone in on what the problems were and helped us connect the dots, and through that, the solution sort of presented itself. You don't have to spend a bunch of money. If you want to do surveys, use things like Google Forms, Airtable. They're free. I think Typeform's also free. These are just different ways that you can gather data online digitally. And if you're not sure where to find people, go to Facebook groups, go to subreddits, spend time in the areas where your customers are or potential customers. And that's how you find the people that you need to speak with to really prove out that there's a problem worth solving. Otherwise, you're going to spend your the time that you have and the little amount of resources to build something that nobody wants, and that is not fun. Great, so now that you've identified the problem and that there's a problem that's worth solving, now you need to actually build the solution, right? Wrong, still not building a solution yet. What you're gonna do is you're gonna prove out the concept. And some people call this an MVP. It can be an alpha. It doesn't have to be a full MVP. An MVP stands for minimum viable product. It's essentially the base level product, no bells, no whistles, no fancy nothing, that just solves the problem for your customers that you've identified. So that is the next step. And you shouldn't go spend money building the solution yet, but just spend a little bit of time to create something that allows you to prove out the concept. This could be a web page, standalone web page. It could be a Facebook group. We use Facebook groups to prove this out, and I'll talk about that in a second. But for Ostrich, that's how we proved out the concept. But prove out the concept before you go spend money and time on actually building a solution still. You want to make sure that it does resonate because you've identified the problem, but that doesn't mean that your solution will necessarily mesh right away. So you've still got a hypothesis, so you want to prove out the concept. And so create a landing page, then go send it to the people that you had in your focus group and in your survey so that they can then give you feedback. And if you've got a buy now offer or whatever your product is, whether it's a consumer product, a service, or maybe an app, a download now, see how many people convert by putting in their contact information or clicking on that button. You'll want to track that stuff. And you can't just build the page and then sit there, because that's not how Google and SEO works. No one's going to find it. So you've got to go or put it in front of people, either organically by reaching back out to the folks that you've already been engaging with, which if you've actually identified the problem correctly, they should probably latch onto your solution and allow you to prove it out. And how that looked for us at Ostrich was that we use Facebook groups. So we had this concept that social challenges, accountability, and community would help people achieve their financial goals. And so what we did is we used Facebook groups with those folks that we had in the focus group as well as others. So we expanded it so we would get a wider base. And we ran a proof of concept for 3 months. And we got actual feedback. We saw people making progress. We got great engagement, as well as just feedback and direct engagement with our customers. And it was really, really valuable. And that gave us confidence that we were on the right trajectory, and it made sense to move on to the next phase, which is actually building out the solution. Now that we've identified the problem, as well as proved out the concept, it's time to build. Now, if you've got a bunch of capital, this is where you throw 50 grand at the problem. Psych, if you were listening, you would know that is not what you do. If you're bootstrapping, you're not going to just go throw money at the problem still, right? That defeats the purpose of the strategy and of the mentality. So what you need to do at this point is you need to figure out creative ways to build your solution with little capital and keeping your capital and your money as close as possible. But being able to build that first version of your product, to be able to sell it, the first version of your service, start generating revenue, customers, getting users, whatever that looks like for your solution. And so for Ostrich, we, as the co-founding team, not being technical, had to figure out how to go build a technical product without any technical expertise. We had a few different options. One was we could go out and try to find investment capital, which again, we were sticking to bootstrapping, so we scratched that right away. We didn't want to give away so much money in terms of equity. And two, it was going to be harder to raise without having a proven concept, first-time founders, non-technical, et cetera, et cetera. So we scrapped that. And the second is learn how to code, which I took a couple online classes and I learned a little bit, but not nearly enough at a quick enough pace to be able to build a mobile app from the ground up. So scratch that as well. Then one of the other options is go find a technical hire, another technical co-founder. And we sort of did this, but again, we couldn't really find anyone in our network that fit sort of the caliber of person that we wanted at the stage that we were at the time. So we scratched that and had to get creative. And by doing all this research, I talked to plenty of engineering companies and engineering outsourced firms to figure out how much it would be and how much it would cost if we wanted to have someone else build it for us. And while I was doing all this research, I discovered something called no-code platforms, where you could actually build apps without using code. And so that's what we did. And I guess even taking a step back, before I found those no-code platforms, I tried to build it out using WordPress and plugins and things like that as a web version. And what I learned and what we learned during that process is, one, we had to be mobile first. It just didn't work when we tried to convert people from the Facebook group, even though we knew a lot of the people that were in our test group, move them over to the web version. It just didn't work as well. So we scrapped that, threw that away, learned our lesson there, but we didn't spend really any money besides mostly time and a little bit on hosting to test that. And instead, I kept doing more and more research, and I found a fourth solution to not being a technical founder, but being able to build a tech product, and that's no code. And I'd looked at it previously, but all the platforms that I found didn't have the functionality that we needed. But I found one that was free, and I'll tell you guys about it. It's called Appgyver. It's a free tool. They were just acquired by SAP, so we'll see how that relationship goes over time. But a great tool that allowed me to visually design as well as do the logic, which was what the really tough part was. Most of the other apps will allow you to visually design stuff, but you can't really do anything behind the hood and underneath the hood. Appgyver did allow me to do that, so I could define what happened when this button was pressed, where the data was sent, where it was stored, all kinds of really cool stuff. So I spent time learning Appgyver and built out the first version of the application that is now live on iOS and Android using Appgyver. And it took a while, but we did it. And so when it comes to bootstrapping, you have to get creative like that. You have to think outside of the box. What are other ways that I could go do this? If I don't have the money, how else would I solve this problem? All right, so that is bootstrapping. Some other important key things to note are it helps if you've got some savings, even if you are doing this on the side, part-time as a side hustle. If you start earning income, you want to probably invest that in the business to scale and grow it versus taking it out of the business to go buy food and groceries and pay rent or mortgage, wherever you are in that stage of life. So having savings is really important. The other piece is ask others for help. Ask other entrepreneurs or other people that have domain expertise that you need help with, right? If you don't know anything about marketing, go ask your friend who's in marketing. Have a specific ask, but don't be afraid to ask people for help. Tell them what you're working on, why it's important to you, and you'll be surprised at how many people would be glad to give you 10, 15 minutes to talk through a problem. With that, go ahead and leave me a comment. If you've got any questions for me or you want a little advice, perspective, go ahead and drop a comment below or tag me on social media at Silicon Alley Podcast or at Silicon Alley Pod on Twitter. And I'm happy to get back to you and share whatever knowledge and help you work through the problem. And if I can't help you, then try to connect you with someone who can. So that's what this whole bootstrapping mentality is about. It's about figuring out a way to get it done, being creative, and not being selfish, right? Helping others that are also building great things, that are also bootstrapping, be successful as well. And then the last thing is be sure to work smart and consistently, right? It's very easy to get sidetracked. You are your own boss, And really you're spending your time and what little resources that you have when you're bootstrapping, so you don't want to waste it. I'm not telling you to go work 20 hours, like go spend every day. I'm telling you to, go spend time with your family, do the things that you need to do to recharge, get 8 hours of sleep, all that kind of stuff. Do what you need to do to be healthy, but consistently make progress, because there's no one to blame if something doesn't get done besides yourself at this stage, because it's just you. Don't be too hard on yourself, but consistently make progress, even if that's just getting one thing done every day. If it's a side hustle, or you've jumped in full feet, both feet first, and it's your full-time thing. So I wish you luck on your entrepreneurial endeavors. I'm William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and of course your host of the Silicon Alley podcast. Please be sure to pound that subscribe button if you have not, and tune in for new episodes like this every week. Thanks so much. Have a profitable day.
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate. Caught in a circle saying I'll never